Shalom, everyone, and welcome to Coffee and Connection Week 167. Whenever I hear a question coming up in like multiple places, I note that and I try to do a Coffee and Connection episode on it because I feel like if I'm hearing it from a bunch of my clients, if I'm hearing it from women's emails, if I'm hearing it even just like on the street, then I'm like, okay, this must be something that women are feeling. And so let's talk about it. And this topic of feeling confident in making decisions, feeling confident in even getting support, feeling confident in the experience that you're having is so important. And it's such a big and it's so important for our relationships in so many ways. Now I want to express that having confidence, it's not like confident people have better relationships. It's not like so simple like that. It's not like, well, you have to be this like charismatic, outgoing, confident person who never doubts themselves, and those are the only kind of people that are going to have good relationships, right? It's not like that. It's not that That's not even a reality. We know that introverted people can have good relationships. People who don't always don't have always know what to do, don't always have like clear, always like feel that they just know what the right answer is. It's not like those are the people that are the only ones who are going to have good relationships. If anything, we know that one of the things that often gets in the way of relationships is somebody who feels that they always know what's best. And they always, are so sure of what they want to do that it actually robs them of the opportunity to connect with others. And then when someone else wants to do something differently, like maybe their husband or their children or a friend or a family member, and their idea of what's right is different, it can actually create conflict instead of connection. So why is it that how does confidence actually tie into connection? Well, I think actually it's based on what I was just sharing before. Very often, the reason confidence leads to connection is because confidence allows us to do a whole bunch of things. When we feel confident in ourselves, in who we are, number one, that doesn't mean that we always know what to do. This is like such an important, like limiting belief that I want to help you break free of. If you're feeling like not always knowing what to do or not knowing what the right thing to do is means that you're not confident. It means that you can't connect. It means that, something's wrong. I'm here to very adamantly express to you that not always knowing what the best thing to do is actually can be a form of empathy, a form of being able to understand that there's different possibilities, there's different ways to look at something, there's different factors, there's different facets of the issue. And very often, the more we can feel confident in that fact of knowing that there's different options, there's different possibilities, there's different like aspects to this issue, then we can, number one, know that it's not about choosing the right thing. It's not about right or wrong. It's not about my way or your way. There's validity and there's stuff that's important about all different aspects. And so then we can look to understand the other person. We can look to explain ourselves more. We can be more vulnerable in the fact that we aren't so sure or that what we are. We can be clear with what we feel, also making space for the other person. We can also be more open to asking for other people's feedback. Right? We can be more sure reaching out and asking questions and getting support because we're not telling ourselves, well, I should know this already, right? That's another aspect. If we tell ourselves, well, sometimes, and I mentioned this in the email, you'll see it in the description below if you're listening to the recording. Sometimes what happens is like we get into this loop, right? I was describing this to a client yesterday. We get into this loop where we're not sure what to do, right? And we're telling ourselves, well, it's I should know if it's like if I should do this or I should do that. I can't figure out what the right thing to do is. Okay, I'm going to describe the whole loop and then I'll break down all how like how all of that the aspects of the loop affect us. So we get into the space of I should know what the right thing to do is. I could either do A or I could do B. Which is the right one? And then we may even think, maybe I can ask for support. Maybe I can ask my husband what he thinks. Maybe I can reach out to my coach. Maybe I can ask a friend. Maybe I can ask another a peer, somebody who, and then we think, but I should be able to figure this out on my own. So then either we don't ask, and then we're still stuck trying to figure out the quote unquote right thing to do, or we do ask, but then even though we put ourselves out there to be vulnerable and ask and to learn and get more confident, we then tell ourselves, well, I shouldn't have had to ask. The fact that I had to ask means that something's wrong. And so we don't allow ourselves to feel connected to the other person in that moment when they're sharing with us. We don't allow ourselves to feel confident in that we're doing our best to figure it out or feel good that we learned something new. Um, I always like when people ask me, like even years for years I was like, helping people out with relationships, and I've been someone that people turn to with questions on, like, even as a college teacher, but beyond that, like with Tara Mishpacha questions and stuff like that. When people say, well, how do you know all this? We said, really, honestly, I mean, besides Baruch Hashem, that like being able to retain the information, a lot of it is because I asked a lot of questions, and I continue to ask questions. And in everything in my life, I always am looking for guidance. I'm always looking for more understanding, and not just give me a piece of advice, but like let me or answer my question, but let me understand that more. Can you answer that for me more? And the more that we open ourselves up to learn from others and gain understanding of a situation, there is so much that we don't know that we don't know. How often do I ask someone for advice on something, whether it's my coach or my rebbitzin or a friend or a a parent, right? Or when I like my husband to say like, "Well, how do we understand this?" And they explain something to me that I was like, "Wow, I wouldn't even have thought of it in that way." Or I didn't even know that piece of information. That's how we learn. We need to both, in order to really gain mastery over our understanding, like what's, how who do like in order to gain mastery over our lives, in order to learn, in order to grow, in order to really create like connection and feel confident. Here's the irony: we actually gain more by being confident and comfortable asking, right? We can learn so much more. But we need to, in order to do that, we have to let go of that feeling of I should be able to figure out all on my own. I should know the answer. I shouldn't be struggling, right? Oh, what's wrong with me that I have to ask for help? What's wrong with me that I don't already have it together? Instead of realizing, wait, life is confusing. Life has many facets. Life has many obstacles, and we have all these fears and doubts and limiting beliefs and stories that come from the way we were raised and what we were taught and what we've experienced and what we just don't know. That like how why do we think, and this I'm going to go back to the first part of the loop, that feeling of like, number one, why do we think that we should be able to figure it out on our own, that we always should know? And even let's break down another limiting belief, the thought that there there's a right thing to do, that it's either this or that and I should be able to figure it out, instead of understanding and having that vulnerability to be able to say, you know what, probably whatever I do has has advantages and disadvantages. It's not about the right thing to do. It's having that confidence in myself to say, well, let me look and understand the situation and make a choice, knowing that there's going to be advantages and there's going to be disadvantages. Is this resonating with you? Is this making sense? Let me know in the comments if this is like if this is something that is you're finding helpful. I think that, very often what has us feeling like we're not being confident is the fact that we're looking to is the fact that, okay, good. Yes, totally resonates. Yes, okay, amazing. I remember a few, I don't remember how long ago this was. Years ago. Years ago, I always described myself. I always felt that I was someone who didn't like who was what is the word I would use? I'm so self-conscious. That's how I always walked around. I'm so self-conscious. I'm so self-conscious. I'm self-conscious. And to me, that meant I didn't have good self-esteem. I always equated self-conscious with self-esteem. Does that resonate for anyone? Does anyone also like look at it that way, that if I'm self-conscious, if I'm always like aware of myself and how am I showing up, and if I'm like kind of like conscious of who I'm being, then it must be that I have low self-esteem, because in my mind, the way I saw it is, if somebody with good self-esteem just goes and is just being and is just doing without thinking, without worrying, without any of that. And then I was speaking to someone, now I remember when it was. We're talking 16, 17 years ago. I still remember this so clearly that I was like, was it last year? Was it 5 years ago? Or was it 10 years ago? It was 16 years ago. I was sitting in somebody's office and they were describing to me, it would like blew my mind. He was like, well, yes, you're self conscious. You're aware of yourself. You're aware of who you are. You're aware of how you're impacting the world. You're aware of people around you. Now, that could easily turn it, and now I'm adding in my own, my own experience and what I've seen and learned for myself and my clients over the last 10 years, is that can easily turn into a people pleasing, and that can easily turn into always worrying and trying to fix, as it did for me for many years, trying to like kind of manage everyone else's feelings. That's kind of the downside of it. That's the danger zone. That's where we want to make sure that we can be self-conscious while also confident. But that doesn't actually mean, being self conscious does not mean that you have low self esteem. Low self esteem means that you don't think well of yourself. Low self esteem means you're beating yourself up for, or thinking that you're not a good person, or thinking that you're not worthy, thinking that you're not good enough, thinking, now, the very often it's like we don't even realize that the reason we're beating ourselves up is because we think that something's wrong with us for being self-conscious, right? And I saw some message, like some comments, like, you get that, right? Like, the reason we're like, oh, what's wrong with me, I'm not good enough, is because we're like, oh, why am I so like, why am I always concerned, or why am I so aware, like conscious of who I'm being? What if being conscious of who you're being was actually a good thing? It means that you are, there's a part of you that is aware of and conscious of and concerned with who you're being and what you're creating in the world around you, which we could very easily, yes, it can go into a negative place of people pleasing and trying to manage everyone's feelings, but it could also be the beautiful aspect of Bina and empathy and being aware of who am I being, because I want to make sure that who I'm being, I'm consciously choosing who I'm being and what I'm creating in the world, instead of going around my life reacting. And being conscious doesn't mean that I have low self esteem. If anything, if I know that I am Atzelem Elohim, I know that I am a neshama. I know that I am more than just my fears and my doubts. And I don't want to just react. And I don't want to just always act like the natural, like how I've always reacted before. And I don't want to just have life happen to me, but I want to create my life. And I don't want to just be what, it like feels good, or what comes easily. I want to be conscious, and I want to be mindful of who I'm being and what choices I'm making, and how what I'm bringing to the world, rather than trying to manage everybody else. I'm managing myself. That actually means that we have good, like, what if that's actually having good self-esteem? Because it means that you know that you are more, that you are worthy, that you have power, that there's so much that you can create in the world. And there's nothing wrong. Now, having good self esteem is not ego, right? That's not the same thing, also. There's another like limiting belief that we might have. Having good self esteem is knowing that, Hashem created me for a purpose. Hashem created me to bring something to the world. He gave me children to raise. He gave me a marriage to build. He gave me gifts to bring to the world, right? That is not Gaiva. Gaiva is thinking, I'm the best, I'm the greatest. And even more, Gaiva is also about making everything about me, as opposed to realizing when other people are dealing with their stuff, that is not about me, that is about them. I'm going to focus on me being the best me that I can be. And very often that's going to mean being conscious of what we're creating in the world, of who we're being. It's going to mean reaching out for advice, reaching out for support. It's going to mean acknowledging that I don't know everything, that just because I see something one way doesn't mean that that's the be all end all. It can be open for influence, open to hear what's going on for people, open to realizing that it's usually not about right or wrong. It's about different aspects of a situation. It's about, not just doing what feels good in the moment, but being conscious of what's going to be, what is going to support others and support myself in being our best selves. Like there's so much more to it. Confidence does not have to come from always knowing the right thing to do, always being so sure of everything, right? If anything, it's often takes the most confidence, it takes the most self respect and self love to be able to say, well, I know what I believe, or I know what's important to me. I know my way of looking at it. So now I can also look to understand your way of looking at it. I can look to see what else is going on here. And rather than feeling like something's wrong with me for not having clarity, in every moment, it can actually mean that I have more awareness of the complexity of life. So, is there something I need to ask for help with? Is there something that I want to understand better? Can you help me explain yourself? Is there something that you realize is holding you back that you want to give yourself permission to get support with, right? Without feeling like it means something's wrong with you. And when you're in a situation and you feel like, well, what's the right thing to do to be able to have that humility, the confidence to have humility, right? The confidence to say, well, there's probably multiple good choices here, multiple right things that, like, so then the question is, which one is going to work best for me right now? Which one is going to be best for my family? Which one's going to be best for for my energy level later? Which one's going to be best for whoever I feel like needs some TLC right now, right? So I'm so glad that this is resonating for all of you, and that you're feeling that it's human. That is very much so much of what I really want to bring to the table here. Why coffee? I believe coffee and connection is so important. I actually want to share something really, really vulnerable with all of you, if that's okay. Um, I've been, I'm always looking to see how can I best be more confident in serving you, in being here to help you. And I was listening to some stuff recently where somebody was trying to express what's the best way to even start something like coffee and connection? What's the best way to give over a class? What's the best way to show people the power of what you're teaching? And I realized that so much about what it was about hype, make everything hypey, right? Hype everything up. This is going to be amazing. This is going to solve all your problems. This is going to, and I'm like, something about this just isn't sitting well with me. And then I realized that so much, on the one hand, I understand we all want clarity, right? And I want to give you all confidence. I want to be, and I really do very much believe that that's why I do this, because I believe that these tools and these ideas are life changing, and that they can help so many women, and that they can make such a difference for you. I really believe that. That's why I do this. At the same time, so much of what I stand for here is this idea of let's not get caught up in hype. Let's not get caught up in everything should always be clear and always be perfect and always be you know, like amazing and everything, like, because I think that's so much of what we're struggling with right now is like the hype of marriage, the hype of what our houses should look like, the hype of what kind of parents we should be, the hype of what kind of relationship we're going to have. I always say, like, this is part of my story, and I always know that if a woman gets on the phone with me, it's like, I got married feeling like I was going to be the best wife ever. I'm like, uh-huh, I know where this is going, right? Like, there's so much hype in this world. I mean, social media is basically hype. That's what it is. Let's each get on there. And even though I know there's so many women to reach on social media, I'm struggling. I'm like really like struggling to get on there because I'm like, no, but it's so hypey. I don't want to be hypey. Why? Because that's so much of what I'm standing here like holding a space for. That we know that hype is not real. Life is real. Life is not perfect. Life is not about, like that the norm. I saw this video of like this couple standing next to each other going like saying all the things like this, if this is happening in your marriage, that's not normal and this isn't normal. And it was like really normal things like if you have fights all the time or if you don't have sex very often or if you what were the other ones? Like really normal stuff, meaning and I realized something so clear. There's a difference between normal and ideal. Or we could even say like healthy, like what we really want, right? Like normal and our desires. Is it normal to like to not be in the mood for sex? Yes. Is it what we want from our marriage? Like, no, I'm going to assume many of us want passion and excitement and to want to be together. Is it normal to not have that? Yes. Yes. So what are we standing there on social media going, that's not normal? No, it is normal. I'm going to sit here and tell you it is normal. And first of all, because it's normal, you don't have to beat yourself up about it. You don't have to think something's wrong with you. You don't have to think you made a mistake. You don't have to think your marriage is broken. And it's not what you want? Well, I can help you with that, right? There are answers, there are ways to deal with that, right? That's right. No one is perfect. No marriage is perfect. That's exactly it. So, what is that word normal? It's like we've taken the word normal and integrated it with desire or integrated it with ideal or integrated with healthy. Like normal is not the same thing. Like normal just means what a lot of people experience or what's like normal to experience. Is it normal to experience these things? Yes. Yes, it is normal. Oh, it's not what you want? Okay, so from that place of it is normal to have that challenge, now we can go and look for solutions, right? So as much as, I want you to feel hopeful, I want you to feel like there are answers. That's why I do this. So you'll see like there are solutions, there are answers, there are tools, there are things that make a difference. And I also want you to not be beating yourself up for having these struggles because life is struggle. And that's one of the big things that I've really been honing in on. It started in the retreat that I did with my clients just before Rosh Hashanah. And I'm going to, soon we're going to finish Coffee and Connection. I'll stay on for anyone who has questions about the upcoming retreat next week. And I'm definitely going to be talking about on that retreat is very much looking at this idea of like, we get so bogged down and so frustrated and so like thinking something's wrong with us for our challenges and our differences and our struggles. And at the same time, like challenges and struggles and differences of opinion and different up like that's life. What if that's normal? What if that's the way things are supposed to be? What if having challenges and struggles and differences didn't break you, but if it helped you grow and it's what you built, how you built your life, how you built yourself, how you built your marriage and your family is by dealing with those struggles, dealing with those differences, right? So, on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much for everyone who's here for Coffee and Connection. I'm always happy to be here with you. Please God, next week I will be coming to you live from a different country. And Be'ezrat Hashem, I hope everything goes smoothly for me to be able to get there. And I am now also going to just stay on for anyone who has any questions about the retreat. I'll have the opportunity now to answer any of your questions, like I sent out in the emails today. So thank you, thank you. Oh, it looks like my internet. Okay. Thank you all for being here. I look forward to seeing you next week. For me, it'll be a different time. For all of you, it should be the same time. And until then, may we all be blessed to live, love, and be loved with all our hearts. Goodbye for now.